behind us. After riding 6 leagues, we arrived at 6 in the morning at the house of the Perez Palacios. We should have gone further while it was cool, but their hospitality, added to a severe fit of toothache which had attacked C n, induced us to remain till 4 o'clock, during which time we improved our acquaintance with the family. How strange and even melancholy are those glimpses which travellers have of persons whom they will probably never meet again, with whom they form an intimacy which, owing to peculiar circumstances, seems very like friendship, much nearer it certainly than many a long acquaintanceship which we form in great cities, and where the parties go on knowing each other from year to year, and never exchanging more than a mere occasional and external civility. It was 4 o'clock when we left Meacatlan, and we rode hard and fast till it grew nearly dark, for our intention was to return to our headquarters at Atlacamulco that night, and we had a long journey before us, especially as it was decided that we should by no means attempt to recross the barrancas by night, which should have been too dangerous. Besides, an eclipse of the moon was predicted, and in fact, as we were riding across the fields, she appeared above the horizon, half in shadow, a curious and beautiful spectacle. But we should have been thankful for her entire beams, for after riding for hours we discovered that we had lost our way, and worse still, that there were no hopes of our finding it. Not a hut was in sight. Darkness coming on, nothing but great plains and mountains to be distinguished, and nothing to be heard but bulls roaring round us. We went on trusting to chance, and where chance would have led us it is hard to say, but by good fortune our advanced guard stumbled over two Indians, a man and a boy, who agreed to guide us to their own village, but nowhere else. After following them a long and weary way, all going at a pretty brisk trot, the barking of hundreds of dogs announced an Indian village, and by the faint light we could just distinguish the cane huts snugly seated amongst bananas, and with little enclosed gardens before each. Our cavalcade drew up before a hut, a sort of tavern or spirit shop, where an old half-naked hag, the beau ideal of a witch, was distributing fire-water to the Indians, most of whom were already drunk. We got off our horses and threw ourselves down on the ground, too tired to care what they were doing, and by some means a cup of bad chocolate was procured for us. We found that we had entirely lost our way, and it was therefore agreed that instead of attempting to reach Atlacamulco that night, we should ride to the village of El Puente, where our conductors knew a Spanish family of bachelor brothers, who would be glad to harbour us for the remainder of the night. We then remounted, and set off somewhat refreshed by our rest and by the bad chocolate. It was late at night when we entered El Puente, after having crossed in pitch darkness a river so deep that the horses were nearly carried off their feet; yet they were dancing in one place, playing cards on the ground in another, dogs were barking as usual, and candles lighted in the Indian huts. We were very well received by the Spaniards, who gave us supper and made us take their room, all the rest of the party sleeping upon mattresses placed on the floor of a large empty apartment. We slept a few hours very soundly, rose before daylight, wakened the others, who, lying on the ground rolled up in their sarapes, seemed to be sleeping for a wager, and remounted our horses, not sorry at the prospect of a day's rest at Atlacamulco. It was dark when we set off, but the sun had risen and had lighted up the bright green fields of sugarcane, and the beautiful coffee plantations that look like flowering myrtles, by the time we reached the hacienda of Señor Neri del Barrio, whose family is amongst the most distinguished of the old Spanish Mexican stock. We stopped to take a tumbler of milk fresh from the cow, declined an invitation to go in, as we were anxious to finish our journey while it was cool, and after a hard ride galloped into the courtyard of Atlacamulco, which seemed like returning home. We spent a pleasant idle day, lying down and reading while the sun was high, and in the evening sauntering about under the orange trees. We concluded with a hot bath. 7th. Before continuing our journey, we determined to spend one more day here, which was fortunate, as we received a large packet of letters from home, forwarded to this place, and we have been reading them, stretched under the shade of a natural bower formed by orange boughs, near a clear cold tank of water in the garden. To-morrow we shall set off betimes for the hacienda of Cocoyoc, the property of Don Juan Goriva, with whom C n was acquainted in Mexico. After visiting that and some other of the principal estates, we shall continue our ride to Puebla, and as we shall pass a few days there, hope to have leisure to write again from that city. LETTER THE 33rd.